Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Unleash your potential with Concrete Consulting. Are you a student athlete striving for greatness? Do you want to enhance your mental performance and elevate your game? At Concrete, we specialize in mental performance and success coaching tailored for student athletes, parents, and coaches. Our expert coaches provide personalized strategies to boost confidence, improve focus, and achieve your goals both on and off the field. Don't just play the game, conquer it. Visit concreteconsulting.com and schedule your free consultation today. Take the first step towards success. It won't. So, everybody, welcome back to the Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm Jeff Forrester, and this is Josiah Novak. So, we're recent, introduced to one another. I heard him on Sean French's podcast, The Determined Society. And not only did he have a great message, he's got a great radio voice. So I knew I just had to have him on the show.
I appreciate you having me on, man. Now the stage is set, right? I have a lot of expectations. I got to live up to it.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, I know it's going to be fine because it's the natural. Well, before we get started, I like to play a game just to warm everything up. It's called Would You Rather. Are you ready?
I love games. Let's go, man. I'm ready.
Okay. Would you rather go back 100 years or go forward 100 years?
Is this, and now I'm one of those people that ask follow-up questions. I'm annoying like that. So can I come back to the current time?
Of course,
or do I
yeah.
have to stay? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think, I guess if you would ask me this before I had kids, I probably would say I want to go back, right? 100 years, because I think a big part of me wanted to redo things, right? But now, someone who kind of believes in the butterfly effect a little bit, right? The choices we make impact, a lot of things in the future. I wouldn't want to screw up what I have today. I'm so thankful for my two kids, my wife, the family that we have. And I hope this doesn't come across as me trying to sound politically correct, because it's not. The fact that is, like, if I ever lost what I have now by changing something in the past, I'd be devastated. Now, if I could go back and the guarantee would be, hey, it's all gonna be the same when you get back. Don't worry, right? Just go check it out. It's a really good question, by the way. Then I don't know. This is a coin flip for me. But if things could change, then my clear answer is I'd like to see what the future looks like. I think there's a lot of things to be excited for. I think with, fitness being my hobby, my passion, and also I think my God-given talent, I would be real curious to see what health looks like in 100 years, because I think there's some really exciting things that may not lead to, crazy longer lifespans, but I do think quality of life has the potential to increase dramatically over the next probably 10 to 20 years, if not sooner. And I'd like to see what that means for the future. I'd like to see what will take place, obviously, long after I'm gone. I don't think I'll live another 100 years. I do have a goal of living to 100, but not 140 like I'd be in 100 years. But yeah, now, to follow up on that question, I think we're just going to stick to this question, by the way, the whole time. This is such a good question.
I love asking these because you just never know where it's going to go. Yeah.
This question is going to be proposed on one of my training calls with our team for sure. This is so great. But if you ask me 500 years or 1,000 years, I think I'd actually like to go in the past, because I think there's just so many unanswered questions about what actually took place, because documentation wasn't as detailed as it has been for, the better part of the last 50 to 100 years, with media. And once again, we may not even be able to trust any of the media at this point, right? And we don't know what was documented truthfully or not, but it would be really cool to go see what actually was going on. What was the wild, wild west like assuming there was guarantees that I could, snap my fingers or click my heels together and come back if I was under attack. But we just watched the Netflix mini series. I think it was called American Primeville. And
Yep.
it was all about the wild, wild West, right? As the settlers were expanding out into the Midwest and beyond, and just some of the chaos, the absolute savagery, not necessarily from natives here in America, but from, people trying to expand territory or acquire territory is pretty crazy. So I'd like to go back and see firsthand, what was that actually like? We have it so good now. I think that would create a lot of appreciation for what we have. But if it's just 100 years, I'm probably just going to flash to, 20, 21, 25, I guess is where we'd be, which would be pretty crazy, man. We probably have flying cars and stuff at that point.
Isn't it funny? Because that's what we always think. Because I know that if you go back and you watch old TV shows like what was it, Lost in Space, it actually took place in 1984, that they were in this flying saucer and went to Mars and went all over the place. Like 1984, that's crazy. And we had no flying cars. And like the Jetsons, I think was just like George Jetson was just born, according to the cartoon. So it's just crazy to think. And when you were talking about going forward 100 years and being healthy, I had a thought is, what are we doing with that extra life? What are we doing that adds value other than just living longer? Because living longer without any value to me is pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is such a good point. And I've started thinking about that because, once again, I think becoming a parent, and I'm still a younger parent, my oldest is 10. So I've been a dad for a decade now, but as you start to mature, and you start to realize what's important and what's not, it's easy to just say like, I want to live longer. But to your point, what does live actually mean? Because there's existing, and then there's actually, maybe there's living, and then there might be something even deeper, which I would call being alive, and I think you have to have things you're working on. One of my mentors, Charles Scott, told me he never wants to retire because retirement is slowing down and not having something to get your hands dirty with, right? Not something to be creating. If you don't have something to create or something to, help with, or something to just put energy behind, I feel like that leads to faster deterioration, maybe just of your mind and even your soul in some aspect. I want to always have something that I'm passionate about, even if it's not a fitness company or helping people change their bodies or whatever. Maybe it's, hey, I want to help my kids, with their business. Or maybe it's, hey, I just want to join a younger team that needs an older, wiser, brain to come in and help lead the charge on whatever they're going after. But I feel like if you don't have something that you're passionate about, that you're working on, that just doesn't add, that takes away the quality of your life. So to your point, yeah, I mean, I want to live to 100, but I want to be going at a really good pace and not be, the last 10, 15 years stuck on a couch somewhere, barely able to do much, not having anything to work on, just sitting around doing nothing. That's actually scary to me. That feels, a little bit worrisome. So yeah, you gotta have a value-based approach to the days that you have, especially if you acquire more.
Yeah. And that's a muscle, is of just working that out, of learning how to find things to do to stay productive and benefit. And it's not like the grind, they talk about the grind all the time. It's actually doing something that's, like you said, beneficial. It could just be, what, I'm committed. I'm going to raise my kids, or I'm going to, if it's in 50 years, I'm going to raise my grandkids. I'm going to do those things, but I need to stay healthy. It's like one of your posts said, is that, I want to be healthy to grow old. I'm chopping it up, but gracefully, to be able to do the things with my kids that I need to. Or like when you were shoveling snow, it's like, I'm healthy, so this isn't hard.
Right.
And we just have to do those things that are necessary physically, but you also address mentally. We got to work our brain out.
100%. Yeah. It's always tough to see, people that I, grew up with, whether it was family, friends, or just people who have gotten older. And you can see how their energy just for life comes down dramatically when they don't have something to get behind. Right. And so health for me is, I want to fight the aging process, not meaning I don't want to chase unhealthy things to try to appear young, but I want to be active. I want to be still doing things that give me joy today. And a lot of that, yes, will come from hopefully helping my kids become dads and being there for them. We're so lucky, my wife's father is real close to us. He lives in the same neighborhood. And he's so active with my kids. And I see how, his energy has stayed really, really great. Like, in fact, when I met him, I feel like he's the same guy that I met 10 years ago in terms of health, because he's so active with my boys. And I want to be that way too. I want to be around doing things, being involved, not being the guy who, has to get dragged out of the house because he doesn't have the energy to go. And, it's scary to think, but like, I'll be 40 this year. And according to statistics, I'm over halfway done with my life, because the average guy, I believe right now, currently lives to be about 73. And that's young in my eyes. I'm like, dude, I'm just getting started, Like,
Yeah.
like,
And
wait
I'm
a second.
51. I'll be 52 next week. I feel the same way.
Yeah. And I'm like, are we just oblivious or ignorant or what? Like, you know what I mean? Because I don't think so. I just think society tells you how to think. And if you buy into it, then yeah, you'll be like, yeah, I'm halfway done. I'm slowing down. I'm hitting 40. Everything's downhill from here, or whatever the term is, everything starts to get harder from here. I don't believe that. I'm like, I'm fortunate enough in my circle to be around guys who are in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s who are getting better. Yeah, maybe they can't do certain things, but they can do some things better than they could before. They're going after goals that push them in different areas. And age is just it can either be a really cool thing to go alongside an accomplishment, like, holy crap, that guy's 50. Like, I always tell this story as, I learned how to ski a couple years ago. I was a quick learner because I come from a family of skiers. I grew up in the ocean doing surfing and, other things like skateboarding in that area. So I was naturally pretty good at skiing. But the story is not about me. The story is actually who I learned from. I took my first ever ski lesson, and I thought I was learning from a guy who was probably like in his 50s or 60s. I mean, he didn't appear that old. He was a phenomenal skier. But I, drummed up the courage to ask him at some point, like, hey, I'm just curious, man, how old are you? Like, you got all your ski gear on. I can't really tell. And he was like, well, I'm actually 85 years old. And I was like, no way. You're out skiing me by a long shot. And all the other young people out here, you're making them look silly. You look amazing out there. Like, holy crap, man, what's your secret? He goes, the secret is I just refuse to get old. He's like, I just go out here and I stay active every day. It's why I have this job, because my body doesn't know necessarily how old I am, because I'm not allowing it to. I'm just going to continue on at a pace that allows me to stay active and young. And I was like, wow, that's inspiring, dude. Like, holy crap,
It's gold.
So that's the goal, right? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and as you get older, this like the fast forward 100 years, we do more and do better because we know more. Like we've gotten rid of some of that, I care what this person thinks. I care what that person thinks. I've got a goal. I know how to do it. I know how to stay, with it. And I mean, it took me a long time to figure that stuff out. And that just comes with age. And that's why it's called wisdom.
Totally, dude. Like, I go to the gym now, and I definitely laugh at my former self. I laugh at probably like the early 20s version the most, who went to the gym with the purpose of showing off. I want to go and outlift the other guys in the gym. I want to be, the guy who's super strong. I want to push the most weight, deadlift the most weight. And that led to a lot of injuries, and in fact, at one point I tore my bicep, which was kind of the biggest eye-opening injury. But nowadays, being the guy who's been training for 20 plus years, I go in the gym and I'm not even close to the guy lifting the most weight. Right. But I'm doing things smart. I'm doing things the way that I wish I would have done when I was younger. Probably would have avoided a lot of elbow pain and shoulder stuff and all sorts of things. But you gain that wisdom through experience. And so now my mission is, how do I pass this on to my kids, the younger generation? How do I, and obviously, how do I pass it on to all of our clients who think they have to do things a certain way and are worried? You don't, right? There is a smart path that'll still allow you to get to the goal, right? It just will allow you to get there, believe it or not, a lot smoother without some of the pitfalls and the hurdles along the way.
Well, so I have a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter, so I'm a little bit ahead of you. The most painful thing occurs when you try to share the wisdom to protect them, to make their path a little bit easier, and not even really easier, because the work still has to be done, but like you said, more efficient and safer, and they completely ignore you. It's so frustrating.
That
I
happened
sit there and I'll
recently
go,
to me.
I'm like, why do you think I'm telling you this stuff? I'm not just making this stuff up. I've actually done it and I've made the mistake. I'm trying to keep you from doing it. Like, no, I'm like, okay. I mean, it's painful. It hurts.
I think it's got to be in our DNA to fight against, I guess you would say, well-meaning authority. You know, I'm a very religious guy. But if you read the Bible, you know, there's a lot of pushback against God, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're God as fathers, but we're kind of the extension of the fatherly figure that God is to humans, right? And you see that rebellious mindset, and I think that just naturally occurs in our children. You know, I recently, and I'm I've kind of cracked the code on YouTube, okay? And so YouTube for me has like been this project that I've been like figuring out for years, and I'm like, okay, I finally got it. Now I know how to go viral. I know how to do things, right? It's a really cool skill to learn. But I'm like, man, I wish I could have started a YouTube channel when I was like 10, because it's not that hard. It does require some work, but once you figure out the formula, boom, you're on it. Well, I tried to sit my 10-year-old down and say, hey, dude, he's kind of into certain things that would be really cool for YouTube. I said, hey, I'll help you. I'm going to teach you all the things, and you can grow a channel over time. And hey, if you never do anything with it, cool. But he's like, Dad, you don't know anything about YouTube. I was like, yes, I do. What do you mean? Look at my channel. It's growing. He's like, look at this channel over here. It's got 20 million followers. You don't have 20 million followers. And I'm like, so what if I end up getting there one day? What are you going to say then? And he's like, no, you don't know. I'm not doing that. Right. And I was like, why? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you're not going to do it? Like, you have someone who knows all this stuff. So to your point, I'm sure once we start, or try to get them in the gym and teach them stuff, there's going to be a lot of like, no, that's not how you do it. No, I do it. And you're right.
You're like, don't you know what I do for a living?
Have you not listened to me for your entire life? Yeah, it's just that built-in rebellious gene that ends up, I hope, going, slowly going away. Like, I even laugh now. Like, I find myself not wanting to be out of the house past midnight ever, right? Because I don't get me wrong, we have nights where we are out past midnight. It's very rare, but because I know a lot of bad things can happen. There's drunk drivers on the road. I start to worry about those things, and you see it everywhere you go. And you think back to when your parents or your mentors told you all these things growing up, and you're like, no, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. I'm totally fine. And then you experience things, and you're like, holy dude, you're so right.
Exactly.
You want to go thank them, or at least thank them for putting up with your crazy self for so many years. But yeah, it's just a child's natural inclination to want to figure out his own path.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I'm sure, and we'll get into this because we haven't even gotten to question 2, 3, or 4, which is fine, is that even as a coach, people hire you, they pay you, and then they push back.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a real interesting dynamic. I wouldn't say this goes for everybody, but it definitely goes for the person, I think, who has little to no experience with coaching, right? Maybe, and I think it probably comes down to the fact that a lot of people who maybe have talents or have, worked their way up to a certain point, maybe have never been coached, but they don't know they've been coached. And so maybe there's this, ego playing a little bit of a role where it's like, hey, I know what to do, right? Or you don't know how my body works. How could you ever know? You're not in my shoes. Someone who has been coached a lot of their life. So I do work a lot of times with prior athletes, guys who maybe played college sports or even pro sports in some aspects, and they really love to be coached. They thrive on it, right? So they're like over the top. Tell me what to do. I'll do it, right? Just tell me everything. Like, I have a really good client. He's actually a Major League Baseball coach, and he's not, I can't say I remember a time where he has not followed what I've told him to do to the letter. Right. And then he's like asking all the right questions. So I think you have to have experienced really good coaching and appreciate what comes with that. And then you're craving more of it. Maybe you've had a bad experience in the past, which oftentimes is the case too, where someone put their trust in a coach, they led them the wrong way, they didn't get a result, they let them down or whatever. And now they're just very hesitant to buy into anybody else's mantra, right? Or anybody else's system. They're like, nah, I know better. I'm just paying you to kind of, tweak things. And it's like that attitude is going to, it's going to be a roadblock. We got to get past it. We have to work through that and be willing to trust again. It's like a relationship, once you've been burned, or maybe you've never had you don't even know what a healthy relationship looks like, a healthy coaching relationship in this aspect. But yeah, you have to work through that. It is an interesting dynamic though. It really is. And it's just a mental block that a lot of people got to get over. And that's where getting someone quick and easy wins is so vital, because when they go, oh, I just, that little thing, that little tweak, and it got me this huge victory. Okay, what else you got? And they start to trust. And we hear this all the time, in our system, where it's like, man, I was super skeptical. In fact, for the first 3 months, I kind of didn't do everything you told me to do. And then I started getting results and I was like kicking myself like, oh, geez, I should just do this. And now I'm thankful that you didn't give up on us or give up on me, and we're still here, because now I do trust the process. Right. Yeah. But it is a very interesting dynamic.
Parenting.
Yeah. 100%, and some people are just more naturally skeptical and less trusting. And a lot of it obviously comes from their experiences, growing up. There was two things. One, I was burned a lot on the personal side with family. I come from a family of abuse and divorce and a lot of really awful things. Also moved every 2 years. So I was always like upended, like, man, I found friends. Nope. Gotta go. Right. That was our process, being in a military family for most of my childhood. So naturally I tend to be more of a loner on my personal side. Right. I'm very selective about who I let in, my home and my social circle. However, I was very thankful to be coached on the sports side by really good guys, right? Guys who took an interest in me for who I was as a man, not just as an athlete, and wanted to see me thrive outside of sports. So that built trust on the coaching side. So now I find that I love to seek out mentorship, and I love to be told, hey man, this is what works, this is what doesn't, right? And I want you to succeed. I believe in you. So follow this, and I promise you, you're going to get better results. I live for that, and I think that's why I love coaching too. But that's not for everybody. Not everybody feels that way.
Yeah, they just put up roadblocks. So
100%.
The second question, which goes into this, so perfect transition. So would you rather always know the right answer or make the right decision?
I think I'd like to make the right decisions, because I think oftentimes, like if we're all being pretty honest with ourselves, a lot of times we know the right thing, right? We, like you walk down the street and, a long time ago, we thought about making this video, but we haven't for some reason, but we were going to interview people and just say, hey, what's healthier, a donut or an apple? And everyone's going to say an apple, right? Like everybody. Right. And so, and they're right, of course. An apple technically is more nutritious, has more nutritional value than a donut. Not to say a donut every once in a while is bad, like totally fine. But if that's all I had to choose from, I'd go with the apple if I want to live longer. Nonetheless, we don't make those right choices, even though we know what we need to do. So I'd like to make the right choice because that's going to lead to results. Knowing something is surface level. Having real knowledge comes from choosing and doing, right? So saying, hey, this is the right path, and then I'm going to actually execute on that. And then you actually acquire real knowledge, because I hear this all the time when it comes to fitness. People say, I know what to do. You don't got to tell me, I know. And I say, the truth is, you on paper know where you should be or what you should be doing surface level. But until you've experienced doing it, you actually don't have the wisdom and the knowledge that comes with the experience. Everybody knows they got to eat better. They got to work out. They got to walk more. They got to do all that stuff. But when you actually do it every day and you experience the ups and downs of life, the stress, the unexpected events, the turns, and all this stuff, you learn how to navigate that while still executing on the plan. That's where the real knowledge and wisdom comes from, and having adjustments, knowing how to do things differently when needed. So yeah, I'd like to make the right choice if that was my option versus knowing which one's the right answer.
Yeah. And we're in alignment. That's what your thought process is, always my thought process. And I asked a gentleman earlier today, the episode before this one, and he said, well, I want to know what the right answer is, because so many times I've learned more through making the wrong decision than the right decision. I was like, I'd still like to make the right decision.
No, I've learned a lot of lessons too. It's just a lot of lessons are extremely painful,
for us and other people.
Right. Because, typically decisions don't just affect you, they affect everybody. And, just as an FYI, I think it's totally normal to make wrong choices on a frequent basis, hopefully less, super, super impactful wrong choices. And, the choices you make become closer and closer to the bullseye of where you need to be. But I think being in the entrepreneurial space, or just being someone who takes risks, sometimes you're going to make a choice and you're like, wish I would have done it that exact way. Right. So yeah, I think given the opportunity, making the right choices will lead, for me at least, to faster success.
So, since this is just a fun exercise and it's not real, and we do make good and bad decisions, how do you try to make a decision? Like, what are the factors that you roll into when you're making small decisions and big decisions?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that really has to be in place is your mental and spiritual health, right? To make good decisions. Because if you ask me to make a decision under extreme stress, if I'm partaking in really awful vices, my mental environment is all thrown off, then my decision-making process is going to be jacked up, right? The other thing too is, I think so many, especially as guys, I think guys are probably more guilty of this. And I won't say it's only guys, but I think guys are probably more guilty of this. We tend to make lone wolf decisions, right? Lone wolf decision-making process, meaning we internalize everything. We try to, weigh options inside our own space. We don't seek counsel. We don't pray. We don't read about it. We just go, man, like, let me beat myself up to the pulp inside. Let me, weigh the pros and cons. Let me sweat this out. Let me hide and, suffer in silence. And then I'll make my decision. And I'm so guilty of that at times. For me, a healthy decision-making process starts with making sure I'm in a good space mentally, checking in, like, dude, am I stressed right now? Like, am I ready to, punch a hole in the wall? Am I ready to, like, burn everything to the ground? That's probably not the best time to make a really important decision. The second thing is, I have always made my best decisions when I talk to my spouse. Now, this is a tricky one, right? Because as a guy on, who teaches sales and whatnot, I tell guys, like, you need to man up, man. You need to make a decision, right? But here's the thing. I do think seeking counsel with your wife is important for big decisions. Not like, babe, do I have your permission to make a decision? No, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, right? Here's what's going on inside my brain. Here's what I'm seeing. Lay it out so that she can give you her point of view, right? And say, like, here's what you might not be seeing. My wife is really good at seeing my blind spots, so I might be ready to just go off the rails about something. This is what we're doing. I'm putting a, flag in the ground. I'm drawing a line in the sand. This is my choice. And she appreciates that about me. She wants a man who's decisive, but sometimes she's going to be like, hey, this is totally cool if you do that. Like, I fully support it, but here's what I'm seeing that you might not be seeing. And I'll tell you, every time she's 100% right? 100% right. The other thing is, I do seek counsel of other trusted advisors in my circle. Now, we're talking about big decisions here. I'm not talking about, like, whether or not I should, clean up the bathroom when I see a messy bathroom or something like that. Like, I'm not, calling a lifeline or whatever. But guys in my circle, for example, this week, I'm going down and spending a very amazing 3 days with guys who are all pastors. And I'm just hanging out with them. We're talking shop. We're talking about life. Those guys we have a text group. I'll reach out for important decisions to those guys because I know they live and breathe a faith-based lifestyle. Their values are super strong. They're not going to tell me what to do, but they're going to give me a lot of wisdom that they've acquired from their own experience. And they're going to do it in a way that's loving and caring, right? And they want to see me succeed. So I'm not afraid to make decisions myself, but I will say, I think it's a powerful tool to seek counsel. And if you study some of the greatest leaders in the history of this, planet, most of them have really strong counsel. Most of them, yes, they've made really tough decisions, but they don't just, go crazy and do it on their own. They typically seek outside advice. And, if there's some lingering, missing links in the chain of decisions, like, hey, I'm still not there, then, I sleep on it. Then I make a choice. And at some point after I've prayed and read the Bible, ask for help and seek counsel. I mean, at some point you got to jump, right? But that's typically how I break down any major decisions that have to be made.
Yeah. And that's gold. And I hope everybody really was able to digest that. And if not, just rewind and go back because, it's surrounding yourself with the right people. And when you were talking about your wife, the only thing I kept thinking of, that's why it's so important to be equally yoked. You have to be on the same page, on the same mission together, because then she knows where you're headed. You know where she's headed. And it's just perspective. She's allowing you to have perspective. I'll use my wife, for instance. I hate buying cars. I hate it. Like I'll go overpay just so I'm done because I just don't enjoy it. She loves the barter. She likes the fight. And so I send her to buy a car. I'm like, okay, yeah. I need a car. We just did it. I'm like, all right, bye. Bring back, get the best deal. Cause I know whatever she's going to get the best deal. And she knows that I'm going to overpay because I'm just done and I just want out of there. So it's having that idea of what are your strengths and weaknesses and how to balance it. The other part that I want to draw the audience's attention to is you're aligned with your values to your wife and then also that group of pastors that you're with. And it's so important to seek counsel from people who are in alignment with the same values that you have. And the only way you can do that is to know your own personal values. And I like also what you said is they're not going to tell you what to do. What's great is they're going to go to scripture and tell you based on scripture, here's what you need to do, or here's how you can go through a process to make sure that you're making the right decision. And then again, like you said, is that at some point you have to make a decision. You just can't keep circling and saying, well, I need more information, because you'll paralyze yourself and never make a decision.
Completely. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the car thing. My wife's the same way. She likes to barter. She's also way better looking than me. So
likewise,
you're probably going to get a better deal than I will coming in there, stomping around. But yeah, to your point, I think there is another viewpoint on this that I would also lean into sometimes. Sometimes you know what you need to do and you're dragging your feet. And in the past, and this has happened with business, has happened with a lot of things for me, where I maybe had an employee who I said, this person's not in alignment with where we're going as a company. And I know I need to part ways with this person and set them up for success somewhere else. But I'm just dragging my feet because I'm being a wuss, if I'm being honest, right? I know I need to do it. God's told me to do it. I know, right? There's no doubt. If then I go to my wife and be like, what do you think I should? She's going to be like, dude, you know what you need to do, right? So some guys, I think, drag their feet. I see this all the time with health and fitness, right? And I tell guys this, like, here's 2 conversations when it comes to decision-making that you could have with your wife, right? One is, and a lot of times, I talk to guys who are like, hey, I feel like I'm letting my family down. I'm not healthy. I haven't been taking care of myself for a long time. I got to get my health right because I'm kind of feeling like I'm a jerk all the time because I just feel miserable inside. And I say, look, cool, makes sense. You know what you need to do. Here's an opportunity for you to, get in the right environment, get help that you need. Let's make the decision because you've been dragging your feet for years now saying you're going to do it. You know what you need to do. Yeah, I should run it by my wife one more time. I said, no, that's not, you're only running it by your wife because you're delaying that first step, right? Just like I remember the first time I ever jumped off a cliff, scariest thing I've probably ever done, right? Huge cliff diving experience. It was extremely scary, right? But I told myself I told everybody I was going to do it, stepped all on the ledge and I looked down, I said, nope, Not going to do it. And I stood there telling people, tell me to jump. What should I do? And everyone's like, dude, you know what you got to do. Like, what, why are you asking me? Right. If I called my wife in that moment and say, what do you think, bitch? She goes, don't jump. It's too risky. What do you mean? You got kids, right? What are you thinking? But in my heart of hearts, I'm like, I know it's safe. I'm going to do it. And the better conversation is going to be, hey, babe, guess what I did? I did something so cool, right? Or, hey, you know, I've been so miserable the past 10 years. I've been overweight, out of shape, not feeling like myself. You keep telling me I want the old you back, but I keep dragging my feet. You know what I did? I went and I actually got help and I'm doing it. And now I feel 10 times better, right? And I just want you to know I'm thankful and I'm grateful that you were patient with me and that you supported me still, despite me not doing what I know I needed to do. But I'm done with that. That's the better conversation sometimes. However, big decisions that I am just torn on, that I'm just like, I truly don't know. I go to my wife. That's the first thing, because I'm like, you know me better than anybody else. You know, you see all the things, and that's the king and queen relationship, right? Where it's not the king being domineering and this toxic, whatever they call it, toxic masculinity, whatever that means, right? But like, it's not like I'm this control freak and I tell everybody what to do. No, it's like, hey, she's got extreme wisdom. She's got the alpha to my omega. She's got the yin to my yang, right? She sees things that I don't, just like she does for me. She comes to me all the time. We've had a lot of discussions recently about decisions she's making inside of her career. And I'm like, hey, here's things that I'm seeing you maybe don't. She's like, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't see that. And that's just two different viewpoints, keeping each other's blind spots from being a huge roadblock.
Yeah. And I like what you talked about fear. So in 2021, I needed to leave my job. I was the sole provider for the house income, and I needed to leave because I hated it. I felt like I was in fight or flight every single day. And so when I was laid off, it was the best thing that ever happened. Like, it was just all removed. And I told everybody, I was like, I was too scared to quit because I didn't know what to do. And so through a lot of self-reflection, it was lack of faith, as I was putting my faith in the paycheck, not into God to provide.
Sure.
And then that's when, I stepped out and really sought prayer, counsel. And then based on what I heard, just like you were saying, is I took that to my wife and said, here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm feeling. We've got to be lockstep with where we're going to head. And if not, I'll go back and get a W-2. But if we're in agreement, then this is the direction I want to go. And it paid off in the sense, not financially, but just spiritually, and as a father and as a husband, it's been fantastic. And when I was ready to quit, she was like, "Nuh-uh, you said you were going to give it this long, and we haven't gotten that long." And so having the support system and the faith, because we made that decision together, was way more powerful than if I said, okay, this is what we're doing and this is what I'm going to do. And then she resent me, and then I bail early because I don't have her support. And then it ends up, unraveling everything that I was trying to hold together. And so just like what Josiah is telling you, audience, is that when you're looking at it, make sure that you have all the information that you need, but you also don't need every piece of information to make that decision. And I like what you said, is that, a lot of times, especially around coaching, people say, well, I can't afford it. Well, you can't not afford to not do it, because if you don't do it, you're going to lose everything that you want to have. And so if you buy into the process, if you become a better man, then everybody's going to say it was the best money that was ever spent.
Yeah, that's the price versus cost discussion. There's always a price to be paid for everything. And there's also a cost depending on, the direction you go. And I tell guys all the time, if people say something like that, right? Like, oh, it's a lot. Well, first thing is good, right? Because you're going to care about it. I'd hate for you to be like, oh, that's so cheap. Yeah, I'll take 6 of them. Right. Then to me, you're not, your skin in the game level is too low. But if you consider the price versus the cost, and you really start to think about this, right? From the time you've already wasted, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, if you haven't gotten there and you've extended the timeline of not getting there, that time is now gone. And I'd hate for anybody to continue to add to that bucket of wasted time. trust me, I've wasted a lot of time doing a lot of stuff that I wish I could get back. Right. It's not the
Preach.
money that it's not even the money that I've lost. It's the time, it's like, gosh, if I would have just done this for the past 12 months instead of this other stupid thing, I'd be in a totally different spot. Forget about the money. The money's gone, right? You can make more money. Then the cost of not doing something as time goes on, right? How does that affect every part of your life? We talked about getting older earlier and how, I feel young still, but I'm going to blink and I'm going to be older. And if I don't take care of things now, if I don't do the work now, whether that's for my health, my business, the time invested with my kids, my kids are going to be on their own. And actually about the same time they've been alive, they're going to be on their own, or at least considered adults. I won't kick them out, but they're going to be starting to acquire the man type of life, right? The grown man stuff. So I have such a small window of time to influence them, to prepare them for that. And so if I'm not doing it now, well, the cost is going to be massive on the back end. Health is an easy one, I think, at least from my point of view. The price of investing in your health might to some seem like a lot if they've never taken care of their health before. Some, it might just be a standard of living, but they go, wow, it's a big price tag. I've never invested in my health before. So yeah, anything compared to zero could be considered large. But if you look at the cost, what's going to happen 10 years from now when your health deteriorates and you can't work as much, or you're in the hospital, or you lose time with your kids or your grandkids? Or how about this? How about just all the days that you hate feeling that way? How about that? Right? Because that's the immediate pain that you would continue to experience. And so we got to put it in perspective. I will tell you, and I'm passionate about coaching because I was at a really, really awful spot in my early 20s. I was depressed. I was actually suicidal. I actually come from a family who we've seen suicide numerous times. So I'm just, I guess, genetically prone to it, I guess, if that's really a thing. But it definitely hit me in my early 20s, feeling really lost and confused. And I was overweight. I was eating my feelings. I was just crushing food to lower my stress level. And I ballooned up 65 pounds. And I never really knew the concept of hiring a fitness coach because I was into fitness. But when I did, even though I, quote unquote, knew what to do, right? When I invested in myself and I had someone who was also invested in me, everything changed, man. Like my whole life changed. And so now I'm like a preacher when it comes to this stuff, right? I'm just like, you got to do it. Like you will never regret it. Like I promise you, yes, it can feel expensive. But when I look back at the last 20 years, I'm like, dude, I'd pay triple what I paid. I'd pay quadruple what I paid, right? To get what I have now. If that meant, hey, I don't get what I have, I'd pay a lot more, right? So I'm just thankful to have that opportunity to invest in something that gives me a result quicker, easier, better, so I don't have to worry about it down the road. But I get it, right? There is that fear factor, of like, I think the biggest fear is I'm going to waste this. I'm going to do this. I have the resources, but I'm going to waste it because I've just spent so much time wasting time.
Yeah.
Right.
And once you make that initial investment, you lose it. Like you forget that it's even coming out of your bank account. It's just one of those things. It's like when you make that, when you get your first job, if you have a 401k and then you're going, how much do I have to set aside? I can barely pay my bills, but I'll put 5% and then I'll put 7%, then I'll put 8%. Before you know it, you've got it maxed out. You don't even miss it. Like it may take 6 months. You don't even miss it because you've kind of leveled everything out. But think of the dividends later in life. That's why I'm able to do the things that I do. Is my wife and I made small incremental sacrifices over the course of a 22-year career that has just created an opportunity. Now it's going to run out at some point, but it's created a chance and some time that we have because of small deposits. And like you're saying, is that not only are you putting small deposits in your health, you're also paying someone to help you, guide you, encourage you, support you. And most people don't think twice about hiring a financial advisor.
Sure.
I'll tell you, you could have $4 million in the bank and be in horrible health. You're not going to enjoy that money. That's going to go towards your doctor bills. So think about the investment, not only in what you're going to put in the bank account, but what are you going to put in your body? And we're both believers. It's your body's the temple. We have to be good stewards, not only of our money, but of our lives and of our physical body. And you were talking about kids, more's caught than taught. they see you be healthy, eat healthy, work out without being asked, work out without going, oh, I got to go out there and do this again, it's going to rub off over time.
For sure. And, I think money is just a form of energy too. I think the tighter we hold on to it and we're not willing to invest in things, I feel like the less abundance comes our way. I try to live by a responsible abundance mentality. I do tithe religiously, and I've always had enough, right? No matter what, because I just do what I'm told according to my biblical principles. But I also don't like being a miser. You know what I mean? So if there's something where I'm like, hey, that's going to improve my family's life, that's going to improve our lives, I'm going to invest in it, even if it's a little scary sometimes, because I know I first of all, I believe in myself. So I've acquired a lot of self-belief. I'm going to do the work. And I think for people out there listening, it's like, you have more control than you think when you invest in something that is going to require work. The good news is all you got to do is the work.
Yeah.
It's not like this magical thing where it works sometimes. No, it's like, especially with fitness, if you show up and do the work and you follow simple systems, you're going to get amazing results. Right. But I think the more I'm open-minded and I realize money is going to flow to me more when I'm less greedy, when I'm less, attached to my materialistic wealth. Right. And I've never had more abundance than when I'm, giving more, right? When I'm like, hey, I'm going to just, hey, if you need something cool here, I'm responsible, right? At times I've made scary investments. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's been some times where I'm like, holy crap, this is like, if this doesn't work, I have to go work. I'll go drive Uber for, 12 hours a day. But that's the game, and by the way, nothing wrong with failing. If I did fail, right, financially, if I made a bad investment, I'm like, man, I lost it all. The good news is I know how to get it back. And it may not happen overnight, but I know I have the wherewithal, the work ethic, and the drive to get it back. And God's gonna get me there. I'm not a lazy person. I'm gonna push, right? I'm gonna get even probably bigger than I was before. But anyway, I think just investing in yourself, that mindset, is massive. If you look at people around the world who you admire, typically most of them have a consistent process for investing in themselves and in others, right? So, you talk to people who have found success in any part of life, typically the first thing they say is, well, I was fortunate enough to have people who I invested, who advised me, right? Who helped me. And that's something that I strongly believe in because I've experienced it, time and time again with every part of my life. I'm a fitness guy, but with my marriage, with my business is massive. The amount of people who have helped me that I've invested heavily in. And even something like this podcast, I invested in podcasting mentorship early on and it paid off. Like, I don't even remember how much I spent, but I was like, now looking back, I'm like, man, it really paid off. I got somewhere faster and more efficiently because of that investment. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right. Question number 3.
All right. Question number 1. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, this is a fun one based on what we were talking about health. Would you rather have pizza or tacos?
I'm a pizza guy. That's easy. I'm such a pizza guy. I'm a Midwestern from Chicago. Grew up military all over the world, but yeah, tacos are great. Don't get me wrong. We have actually, I think we have tacos in our house at least once a week. It's just the easiest, healthiest, unhealthy food that you can make, and one of the most, at least in my opinion. So, but pizza, oh man, I'm just a pizza guy, brother. Like, funny enough though, being from Chicago, you might think I'd be a deep dish guy. I'm actually not. I'm actually a New York pizza guy. I love New York pizza because it's thin. You can eat a lot of it. We were just actually in Italy over this past summer, and my love for pizza here in America took a huge hit because pizza in Italy is incredible. The best part about it is no matter where you go in Italy, if you order a pizza, they bring you a whole pizza. Right? Like, it's not like, here's a couple slices. Like, they bring you a large whole pizza. It's just the standard. And you eat the whole thing and you don't feel sick afterwards. It's like the quality of food over there, the ingredients are just better. And it's a real thing. I mean, I ate so much pizza and I never once felt like you do here. If you, four slices of pizza, you're like, oh geez, that was a lot. Over there, it's just like standard. And my kids too, they were crushing whole pizzas like it was nothing. And they're like, Dad, this is great. I feel amazing. Like, you're energized,
Yeah.
So I'm pizza all the way, man.
No, that's awesome. Very cool. All right. So the last question, and I want to be respectful of your time, so we may have to do part 2.
Sure.
If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
If I came with a warning label, it would say, oh man, I know what I want to say. I'm just trying to phrase it the right way. It would say, okay, there's probably two ways I could go here. One would be um, prone to be highly introverted. Warning, could be highly introverted at times. The other one would be caution, massive visionary. I'm a huge visionary. So I need, I have a strong operations team because I have a lot of ideas, like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, so it's easy for me to come up with, 15 different ways of probably getting to the same goal. And I, need someone to be like, hey, this is the track. Be creative, but don't go off track. I think the introvert one's probably more applicable though, because I'm a introverted extrovert, right? So I love doing podcasts. I love creating videos. I love coaching clients, but I also need equal amounts of time, if not more time, to be in peace and quiet, right? Because that's where I get recharged. My wife's the opposite. If she's by herself all day, she goes crazy. She's like, this sucks. Like, I got to get out of the house. I got to go be with friends. We got to like hang out. We got to do stuff. And so she needs that social interaction, that like people, the loud noise, like fun. And I'm the opposite. So we complement each other because, if it was just her, she'd be out like, with her friends all the time. If it was me, I'd be like in the basement, like by myself doing stuff. But I'm also very creative. So I'm like, probably the artist in the, the garage, like, what is he doing out there? I don't know, but he's having a great time. So yeah, I'm definitely prone to being highly introverted.
Yeah, I get that. So I joke because I'm very similar. Is that I could go to a party and stand in the corner and not say a word all night, and I would be perfectly okay with that.
Totally, man. Totally. Yeah. There was a funny, speaking of that, there was a hilarious, I think that, a reel on Instagram, and it was like, no one's happier. And it was like some guy walking out of a party, like looked like he was the happiest guy ever. Right. And they're like, nobody's happier than an introvert leaving a party. And he just looked like he was like getting to the party, right? He's like, woo, like so happy. And I was like, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I can have a good time talking to people and hanging out and all that fun stuff. But at some point my energy goes, like, it's almost out of nowhere. Sometimes you're like, whoa, like I'm done, right? Like, that's it. I got to go. My wife's energy picks up as the night goes along. Like, she's like more and more interaction. She's like, I don't want to go. So yeah, no, that's just the gift and the curse of the introverts.
Do you feel like it's the idle chit chat, like the nonsense that just, because I could like, again, it's 51 minutes and it doesn't feel like it's been 10 minutes having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
But some people, it's like, holy smokes, I can't believe we're only 18 minutes into this thing.
That's exactly it, man. I think conversations for me have to be meaningful. Like, that's why I like having the podcast, whether I'm hosting or being on a podcast, because the conversations are valuable. You learn something, you share ideas, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, I feel like this is a really good use of time. I think sometimes people enjoy small talk and chit chat and just kind of shooting the breeze. I have a hard time with that, and now it's not that I don't do it. I definitely do it. But like an airplane, for example, it's maybe a rude habit, but I put my headphones on like right when I get on, because I'm like, I want to be in work mode. I want to be in peace. I want to read, do something, internal while I'm flying. And I've sat next to people who want to chat, like, hey, what do you, it's like, oh man, like, and then, of course I have to be, I'm super nice and cordial and stuff, but inside I'm like really dying because I'm like, dude, I just need peace and quiet. Don't you know I'm introverted, right? But that's just, but they're just wired different. Some people feel more at ease when they're talking, right? I don't.
Yeah. I feel better listening.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a great podcast host.
Yeah. You are a good listener. Yeah. We're very similar. We're like, yeah. And I like listening too, because at some point I think being an introvert has allowed me to realize when I'm talking too much, right? Because I know how I feel when someone's like, dude, this guy, like, oh man, will you stop talking, right? So I'm very like self-conscious about that. Like, ooh, am I talking too much? I want to provide value, but I know as an introvert who deals with a lot of internal thoughts and environmental stuff, I know at some point, like, all right, enough. Let somebody else talk, right? Which makes you a good podcast host for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering those very first questions that we had, and we didn't get, but it was very valuable. So I started Pathways to Greatness for conversations just like this, because I want people to see that every pathway is different. Everybody has a different definition of greatness, and we're going to get to that in just a second. And I just want to give them real tactical things they can do. And you've provided a wealth of gold already today of going through that. And it's all things that are valuable, and knowing your health, knowing how to make decisions are all part of pursuing greatness. So with all that being said, is what would you say your definition of greatness is?
Well, I think the first thing always for me comes down to how I'm showing up as the man in my house, and that's not just being a dad. That's how I'm showing up for my spouse. Because at the end of the day, that's all you got, really. You know what I mean? Like, your family is a gift. It's a blessing. Money is great. Don't get me wrong. I love making as much money as God's intended me to make, and I'll keep pushing as long as I'm supposed to. But the money without the family sucks. At least that's me. Like, I know some guys out there are preaching the opposite. Like, you don't need people. You can be a man who just has his guys and his wealth and all that stuff. That's just not for me personally. I want to be able to enjoy the blessings that we're given as a family. So greatness for me comes down to, am I able to spend quality time with my kids when I want to, with my wife when I want to, doing things we want to do that are obviously healthy, serving a bigger purpose, and doing it, where and when we want to do those things. Right. And so, does that mean, I'm flying to Greece private and, living on a private beach? No, like that's not always the lifestyle that I'm seeking, even though that does sound really nice. Right. Sometimes it's just movie night on a Friday night. Right. And I'm just blessed to be able to do that. And I think if you're able to show up for the people in your family, right, because a lot of this greatness definition for me comes from breaking the cycle of poor fatherhood, whatever you want to call it, for the past, believe it or not, about 100 years of my family, both on my mom and dad's side. There's history of alcoholism, there's abuse, there's divorce on all sides. I'm breaking that, right? I'm setting a new pattern, and I'm doing it based off of God's instruction. And it's such a blessing. I'm so thankful. I never thought I'd be here, right? And so to me, that's greatness, showing up for those people every single day. Now, I will say that comes with a little bit of responsibility. Number one, it comes with being a steward with your finances. Are you growing, right? Are you pursuing excellence in that realm? Settling for something, knowing you could do more, I think that's letting yourself down, right? I think if you're called to do more, you should do it. You should pursue that. I've started talking about building a personal brand. I think as we move forward into the next 10, 15 years, a personal brand is going to be important, I believe, for everybody. Second thing is taking care of your body. It's not enough to have the Rolex. What about your physique? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel strong? Do you feel capable? I'm not telling you to be on the cover of a magazine. I'm telling you, do you feel good, right? Do you feel like your body serves you, or do you feel like it holds you back? If it holds you back, there's a problem, but it's fixable, right? One of my good friends, Keith, is famous for this quote. I love this quote. He says, "You are the problem." But the good news is you're also the solution, right? Which is amazing. So you don't feel held back by these things. Just feel like, hey, these are things I get to fix because I'm also the solution to the problem. But for me, greatness comes from checking those boxes. Then, of course, there's your faith. Now, I'm not going to preach, even though I've probably preached a lot on this show, and I'm very passionate about my faith, but it's only because it's brought so much good in my life, and it's got me through a lot of tough times. So whatever your beliefs are, if you're living according to really strong values that make the world a better place, I think you're on the right track. Won't tell you, you have to, but I personally believe in Jesus. So, I try to live by the code that's in the Bible. Am I perfect? Heck no, dude. Like, I'm a joke compared to the standard that was set there. But I think from my perspective, there's no downside to pursuing that, because the teachings are simple. Treat people well, do good to others, be selfless, work hard, be someone who's the first to give, the last to take, right? Those things, I'm like, man, that's a good life right there, dude. So it's not a downside to me. I don't look at it as like, man, this whole weird thing I got to do. So that's how I define greatness, this lengthy definition. But I think if you get those boxes checked, you know, all the fame, the Instagram followers, the podcast stuff, like that stuff is cool, but it's only cool because you have that really strong foundation.
Yeah. And it's fleeting. It can be
For sure.
gone in an instant. I mean, you look at,
yeah.
I don't watch the news, but I did see some of the news clips of, you know, people losing everything in those LA fires, everything.
Definitely.
And these were multi-million-dollar homes that they've worked for forever. And so it's like the Bible says, you know, lay your treasures up in heaven,
Most
where
definitely.
moth and rust doesn't corrupt, because that stuff there lives for eternity. And like you said, the love, the care, the treating people well, that stuff pays way more dividends later in life than if you're trying to cut corners and, you know, climb over people up the corporate ladder, so to speak.
For sure. I have a strong passion for collecting shoes. and I laugh about it because, you know, me and my buddy Carlos, if you're listening to this, he and I are like, you know, we bounce shoe ideas off each other. It's our childhood still rearing its ugly head. I guess we love shoes, but I've made it a point now though, to give away a lot of my shoes whenever possible. Because I'm not attached to them. It's a fun thing, right? But if I lost it all in a fire tomorrow, cool, life goes on, dude. Like I refuse to be attached. It's truly a hobby, right? And we all have our vices. We all have the things that we enjoy, but I'm not going to worship those things. I'm not going to idolize them, right? I have, you know, really rare shoes, but guess what? They, like you said, they could be torched, you know, in a fire tomorrow. I have some really nice watches. Guess what? They could be gone. Someone could walk into my house and steal those at any point in time. And guess what? Doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter because I got my kids, I got my wife, and there's people who have lost those things too, which is the ultimate, you know, dagger and loss and truthfully devastating in some cases. But, you know, materialistic stuff, getting attached to all that. And heck, even things like finding success with your podcast. You know, I've been top 10 on iTunes in the past for fitness. Nobody cares, dude. Like it's cool. And for the moment you're like, wow, but guess what? Life goes on. And that's not that's a really cool moment, but it's not true success. True success is playing the long game for eternity, right? And doing the right things. You know, you could always, you know, like I've had millions of views on certain pieces of social media. Nobody really cares. It's gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? Those things, if you hang your hat on that, and you're like, that's what defines me. I'm so cool. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't, because it's gone. And trust me, there will be somebody cooler than you coming around the corner at any moment, going to take your spot. And if that's where you hang your identity, you're in for a rude awakening. My identity is in God and as a family guy. My kids looking to me as a dad who cares and loves them. That's my identity 100%. Everything else is just like a nice to have. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, cool. When it happens, woo, we'll celebrate and then get back to work the next day. It's really that simple.
Yeah. Cause you could live in a van, and if your kid still sees and knows that you love and care for them,
sure,
that's what matters. Right.
Yeah. And those days may come where, what if the world goes crazy? What if you got to live off the earth? You know what I mean? Are you going to be this terrible person because you don't have your Lambos and your nice house anymore? No, you're going to have to be the same guy you were when you had the nice things, if you are truly dialed into the right identity, right? Because no matter where I am, I'm the same person. You know, people meet me in person, and, you know, we interact online through social media, which is, you know, a lot of fake stuff from, you know, all different angles. And people expect you to be this like totally different person when they meet you face to face. But I try to be the same exact person no matter where I am, because I'm just not trying to be something I'm not. You know, I don't have any you know, crisis or that hole in me where I'm like, I don't know who I am. I got to, you know, chase all these things. Trust me when I say there's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. I want to be successful, but I don't want to change who I am at the core in order to get there. Right. And so I think that's just that the fires in LA recently have really, like, my wife and I were talking about that too. Like, you know, we were like, man, like, let's just continue to do things that are going to fill up our memory bank versus our materialistic bank. Right. Because we could go buy all the new stuff, all the new, you know, this and that, and it's never going to really matter. It could be gone tomorrow. But taking our kids on a camping trip, or, you know, going to the beach and spending time with them, you know, in the ocean, that's what we want, right? Those are the memories nobody can ever take away from us. So yeah, huge reminder, man.
Yeah. And those are things that when you talked about rolling back the time and wasting money, I wish I wouldn't have bought things thinking that that would make me feel better. And then I wish I would have invested more in making memories, like going on trips, doing fun things, taking risks, taking adventure, and then investing in myself earlier in life. So those are all extremely valuable lessons. So
Yeah.
Josiah, we're going to have to do this again. And, but I do want to be very respectful of your time. So what would be some parting remarks other than the goal that you've already shared that you'd like to leave the audience today?
Well, we haven't talked a lot about fitness, so I'll say, I think fitness is the lowest hanging fruit. If you're finding struggle in life, I say fitness can be your anchor. I like to compare life to going through a storm on a ship, right? It can feel really scary at times. You have some ups and downs, and it's not always like financially related. Sometimes you just feel off. You're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I just don't feel good. I'm doing all these good things, I think, but I just feel like my life is kind of out of control. And I'll tell you, first of all, you're normal. You're totally normal. We all feel that way. And for me, and I'll just speak for myself, and I think it'll potentially help a lot of people. I find that when I take care of my physique and my health and my body, things start to level off a little bit, right? At least from the anchor mentality, meaning I know in my day, I have 30 to sometimes 60 minutes that I'm going to feel good. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to get some energy out. I'm going to build some energy up, and then I'm going to be able to tackle the challenges that come my way so much better than I would have had I not done that. And so fitness for me, it's just the lowest hanging fruit to improving all parts of my life. And I wouldn't be on this podcast today without it. I can tell you that. I'd probably be dead somewhere, or, someone who nobody wants to talk to because I'd be such a jerk. But fitness along with faith, that's a super, power right there. But for me, for everybody who I interact with, I always ask them, tell me about your fitness routine. Because if you don't have something simple that you can follow every day, that gives you energy, that gives you joy, that makes you feel better about yourself, do it. It's the one thing that's accessible for everybody. So I'll leave you with that thought. And, our mission is life moves fast, make it count. But fitness for me is just it's the lowest hanging fruit, guys, for you to grasp onto and make every part of your life better.
Yeah, and it's really important to take what he shared to heart. And it doesn't mean, yes, it's easier when you hire someone who knows what they're doing that can expedite the results that you're going to get, but all you need are 2 feet and out the door. Even if you have to walk laps in your house, I mean, just move, do something. And to me, it's also, I'm sure similar to you, it's a religious experience to be able to go do that, because then you can just be in your head, do your thing. And as introverts, we love working out by ourselves. So don't walk up to us in the gym.
That's why I wear this hat: workout and worship music.
Right, there's no talking there.
Yeah. On the side it says, don't talk to me. You can't see it, but
yeah, do not disturb.
Introvert. Yeah. At work. Yeah, dude, you're so right. It is a form of, meditation for me in a lot of ways. My days are just better when I work out, and you're right. You don't need to do anything besides put your shoes on and go move. The hardest weight that we lift is usually the door to the gym, whether that's your home gym or the gym you go to. And we have a 10-minute rule. I always say, I don't want to go work out today, so I'm going to go work out today. And I always commit to 10 minutes, because after 10 minutes, you feel great. You're like, why was I ever so worried about this? But those first 10 minutes are the hardest. So get those done, do that no matter what. And I promise you, you'll be doing 45-minute, 60-minute workouts before you even realize it. And you'll be so thankful that you did it.
And you'll never regret a workout.
Never.
Ever.
I love that quote. Yeah. I've never done a workout and regretted it. And the other thing too, is I've never eaten healthy and regretted it. Maybe if you get food poisoning, but
yeah, man, I hate feeling good. I don't understand this. I need to stop that. I'll get used to it.
So yeah, exactly.
But everybody, I'll get all the information from Josiah on how to find and follow him, but give them a quick mention of how to find and follow you.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. So you can definitely check out my podcast too if you're into listening to really good shows like this one. It's the True Transformation Podcast. You can find it on every podcast platform. Easiest way to probably connect with me is social media, obviously, but Instagram is where we're pretty active, at Josiah Fitness. We do post some stuff on there pretty consistently to help you with your fitness side of things. And I'm open on the messages side there too. So we answer every message that comes through. So appreciate you allowing me to do that, man.
Hey, no problem. And like I said, I'll get everything that I can. If you decide to go to the show notes, I know most people don't go, but it'll all be there if you choose to have the links and you want to find him a lot easier. So just hang on a quick second, but everybody, I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you for hopping on.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.